Your losses. There will be no losses today. Today we are winning on the superpilotish channel. Welcome. My name is Graham Wilson, and today I'm going to be talking about cutting your losses and some considerations about that. I'll be talking in my basement. And hey, Dan, I see your little bug there, your little bee. That's exactly how I was going to start off my show here today because I got this idea about, when do you cut your losses? At some point, it's like, it's just not worth it anymore. Or cut bait, you could say that for the fishing people out there. And so, yeah, today it was like I went out to the garden and I opened up the back screen door and this moth flew into the back room. And I was like, oh man, like get out of here, Mr. Moth. So it was like and then the moth went over and kind of went to the screen door, and I was like, well, are you just gonna hang out there all day, Mr. Moth? What's going on? There's no food in here for you. And so I was like, get out of here, Mr. Moth. So I don't know, I I opened up the door again and I tried to, I don't know, shoo it away or something, and it climbed right up in between. You know how you got your screen door, you got like some glass and then a screen, and you got this, it kind of slides up and down. Well, this stupid moth went right up in between the glass and the mesh of the screen. And I'm like, how am I going to get this stupid moth out of here? So, anyways, putzed around a little bit there, and I came back, and this dumb moth was still stuck in between the glass and the screen. So I was like, "Hey, Corey, hey, Wrench." So it's like, all right, here we go. How am I going to get this thing out? So ideally, the perfect tool for that would have been like, I don't know, maybe a coat hanger with a little hook, and you can kind of gently nudge the moth out from in between where it was stuck. But I didn't feel like doing all that work. So it's like, what do I got lying around? Total MacGyver style. Okay, here we go. We got this piece of newspaper. So I get this piece of newspaper up there and I'm trying to shoo this thing away. And it keeps climbing up further and further and further. I mean, I guess if I was getting poked, I wouldn't want to go towards where I'm getting poked, right? But this moth climbs up there and wedges itself right up against the very top of the mesh and the screen and the glass in the door, and I'm trying to get it out. Now it's like there's hair coming off of it. I probably busted a leg off of it too. And I was like, okay, this is not working, man. This is where I got to cut my losses and got to squish it. So I went around to the other side, squished the moth, put it out of its misery. But now I got to go clean the back door because it's got bug guts all over it. I'm like, oh man. Well, at least I got a idea for my show. So it's not all that bad. Yeah. So, anyways, got a dead moth I got to take care of after the show. So, anyways, and that got me thinking. All right, at what point do you say, okay, this is enough? I got to cut my losses here. There's no rescuing. Like there will be no heroic super pilotish video. Here's how I saved this moth. No, I just killed it. So, yeah. But you can figure that way. Maybe it might have gotten picked off by a bird or something, and it got lost a wing, and it's trying to fly with one wing or something, and it starves to death. I don't know. Quick and painless, not the worst way to go for a moth, I'm assuming. So, anyways, I did a quick Google search on when to cut your losses, and there's a lot of different. I've never Googled that before or anything, and then it's just like uh there's like psychological stuff about like, oh, I don't know, bad relationships and blah, and then like all kinds of financial advice, when to cut your losses, and do the, and here's your graphs with lines and opening and closing and triangles and stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just talking kind of about generally in life. So then I was thinking about at what point did I do stuff where it was like, okay, that's enough, something like that. So I got some considerations here on the whiteboard. And the number one consideration here for cutting your losses is you wake up one day or you find yourself in the situation where you say, man, this sucks. This really sucks. Okay, I got to cut my losses. So that's the number one. So yeah, so that's like something like, say, you're working at a job and it's really not doing it for you. You're here, maybe you can get more money somewhere else. And you're like, "Yeah, okay, this job really sucks. Okay, I'm gonna go apply for another job, and hopefully it's better." And usually, jobs just end out to be jobs, anyways. And oh, hey, Jim. So yeah, so that's the. It's just like not scientific or anything like that. Just when you say like, this really sucks." So another thing the second thing I was thinking about cutting bait, cutting your losses is people they have everyone has to do it. If you own a car, you're going to have to make the tough call at some point that okay, the car is getting older and older and older and it's breaking down and all this stuff. So there's going to be some consideration of money there. Or how do you do a euro? Like this? I think that's a euro or a bow and arrow. I don't know. Anyways, you're gonna have to consider your cash there at some point. So for a car, and it goes at the individual level, and it can also be on a bigger level too. I'll kind of talk about it. And I did mention wrench. I saw in here wrench was talking about sunk costs, or somebody was talking about that. That's kind of part of what I was going to bring up. So I had this old, personally, I had this old 2000 Toyota Corolla, and that car didn't owe me anything. I got it, and I put kilometers and kilometers. It had lots of kilometers on it, or miles for Americans, I guess. It was had a lot of miles on it, and put more and more onto it, and put a little bit of money into it. I had to what messed up on that. It was had to get a new radiator for it, had to get a new clutch for it. Brakes. I had a brake line that was starting to get mushy, and what else did I have to get? Brakes, tires. So I had to put like a little bit of money into it, but it wasn't too bad. But the worst thing about it was that it was just rusting and rusting and rusting and rusting. And then I would put some paint on it. So I get my little brush and I brush it. It was a gray car, so I got some gray like primer. I just like the brown really stood out against the gray. So it was like, okay, that looks like a real rust bucket. So I'll just put gray paint over it. Hey, looks a lot better. So like every 6 months, I'd blob over the gray paint with the brush and throw the brush out. Hey, we're good. And then it was like, what else? Another thing there too, that I had to throw some Bondo on there because I closed the door one day and a bunch of rust fell off onto the ground in my garage, and this is gonna make a mess. So I got some. I actually used like duct tape, Bondo, that mesh stuff. Yeah, Bondo kind of. Anyways, I blobbed the door all up, painted it gray, looked good. It's pretty solid. And then sometimes you kick it just see if it's solid, and a chunk of Bondo would come out. But anyways, good car. I can talk about it all day. But eventually it got to the point where, okay, it was starting to burn a bit of oil or lose it. And then it had like, what was it 450,000 kilometers on it when I got rid of it. So was it 280,000 miles, just a guess. And so, yeah, and it was, it was starting to go through oil. Used to have, like, I used to be able to do an oil change and it was always a quart low or a liter low. And then now I had to start like replacing the oil like quite a bit. And then, so I was going around at work and it was just like, well, I was going through so much oil that I stopped doing oil changes on it. So I just keep topping it up. Then I get like leftover oil at work and stuff like that. What's this? Aeroshell 100W plus. Okay, it's a half bottle. That shouldn't be here. I'll stick the airplane oil in there. We'll stick this other oil in here. 10W40, 30. Who cares? We got a leftover. And I just stuck it all in there, and eventually had to cut my losses, and it wouldn't have made it through another winter with the tires that it had. It was kind of bad in the snow anyways. So it had to get a new one. But I was ended up getting the car, got lucky and got my Volkswagen Golf station wagon that I'd been researching it for a while, and it's like, okay, that's the car I want. A little bit more than I wanted to pay, but it was also newer, it was under warranty. And then you think about the whole cost. Okay, it's like, I'm done with this old car, gonna get one that's most of the, it's got a good chunk of depreciation gone off of it for it's a couple of years old. Do all your factors, and there we go. That is that. So consider your costs, and then, like, I didn't really. You could go as crazy as you want, making a spreadsheet and just debit credits, all this whatever these math people do. But I was just like, man, that car is pretty bad, and I don't want to get to the point where I'm stuck in the snow and the engine's broken down, and it says, and I say, this sucks. The time to change it was back here. So, anyways, that's that. Okay, another thing. When do you cut your losses here? Oh, wait a minute, I forgot something. Just okay, and then also going back to how much money you have into something. Now, this is something that happens a lot with capital projects, with governments or big corporations or something like that. They take on some big project, and has anyone in the history of mankind ever seen any great big huge project come in on time and on budget? Like, never. It just doesn't happen. So, hey, that's a nice low bid, and then, like, okay, we'll give it to the lowest bidder. Now the contractors got you by the by the cojones. They're like, yeah, let's oh yeah, we need a little more. Oh, we need a little more. Oh, we're 90% there. We need a little more. Yeah. So that happens everywhere. With Detroit, city of Detroit, across the river here from me in Windsor, Ontario. Back in the day, they built the People Mover, which was this it's kind of like I guess like a subway, but it's above the ground. What would you call that? Just some little rail loop that goes around downtown. And it was took way too long, way over budget. And then another thing too, once it starts getting too long, like, if anybody was in the construction business in the last few years, you know what the price of lumber did, in the last few years. And so it's like, you start taking too long, and then all of a sudden, whoa, now the costs are starting to go up for materials too, and inflation. And, like, inflation right now is crazy. So yeah, so that can happen, and people don't plan for that. And so, and then so now, what point should you cut your losses? So now the thing is, it's real easy for governments and big corporations, because they're like, hey, it's not my money. Throw it on the pile, man. Vote for me. Yeah, vote Quimby. So yeah, they can kind of do that, but you yourself, I usually okay, yeah. So I'm gonna get to that a little bit later. But yeah, so you got to kind of consider the money and how long it's going to take, and sometimes it might be better just to say, forget it. We don't need a little monorail going around downtown. Although it is pretty cool taking the Detroit People Mover. It's like a neat little non-walking tour of downtown. Okay, another thing you can do, which I never do, but I've heard you can do it, is you can make up, like, consider advantages and disadvantages of something. Okay, put all the advantages on one side of a column, disadvantages on the other side of a column. Who does that? I don't know. Saw it on the internet. Okay, now we're getting to some real concrete solutions here for cutting your losses. Okay. Oh, I'm running out of room on my whiteboard. Okay, now this gets to ideally you want to be in a position where you don't have to cut your losses. So this is what we do in aviation a lot, is we plan ahead. Hey, if you got a good, plans can change, but generally, if you got a good plan that's ahead, you plan ahead what's going to happen there, and then you stick to it. But So say this would be an example of, okay, say you're flying your airplane. You got your little airplane. You're gonna go fly, I don't know, a couple 100 miles and go grab a hamburger somewhere. Some pilots do that sometimes. And yeah, so you hop in the plane. It's like, weather looks pretty good, and but there's a chance that the weather could be a little bit bad when you get to your destination. Could be like really strong crosswind, and maybe you're not the most experienced pilot, and that could be tricky for you. And it's a narrower runway than you're used to. Hmm. So, but if you just go ahead and you do that, now you notice that the wind is terrible at your destination, and you're in over your head, or you're above your the wind is above your abilities as far as where you're comfortable at. That's where you would have been better to say, okay, I have my own personal weather minima. If it's going to be this much wind at this much degrees off the runway, man, I can't do that. And then even if there's like a 30% chance of that happening, no, I'm not going to do it. And then your decision's made. You have that as part of your, I guess, like your operating system, where you're planning ahead, and then you don't have to cut your losses. Like, say you're going to land somewhere and you say, oh, this is too dangerous, and now you're going to be flying back home. You didn't get to land and get more gas. Now you're getting low on gas, and then things could get nasty on you and stuff. So and then that could be a point where you might get to a point where you can't cut your losses. So I guess I would say the way to cut your losses there is, don't risk the loss in the first place. And that's why, if you plan ahead, that would be something that would be good. Another thing that I've also found, because I'm getting a little bit up there in the years, got a little bit of gray on there. So shows up more in the sun. That's why I wear a hat. Well, anyways, why do I wear a hat? Oh yeah, the reason I wear a hat is because I got this light up here, and I just get this big shine off my forehead. So it's like, what do I got for that? A hat. Now it's kind of my gimmick. But so anyways, what I found too, for if you are planning ahead for anything, and that could be, you know, vacation you're going to take, a trip you're going to take in your airplane, you're going to be building a new garage, maybe you're building a new house, something like that. Maybe you're going to be putting in a new high speed rail between this city and that city. One thing I've found for sure my entire life is that everything always takes longer than you expect, and always costs more than you expect. It's the rule rather than the exception. That's what I've found. Everybody should consider that. And yeah, so and then I was talking that just I'm just kind of thinking about back in the machining days. Eventually you can get to the point where you can predict. I knew this one guy. He used to be an estimator for the mine that was up in Sunbury, and he would estimate these jobs and say, like, okay, we need these little parts that are made for the mine. And there was a machine shop there, and they said, okay, how many hours should it take, how much money should it take to build these parts? And then you could burn away your budget on that, or however he did it. But he was helping me out at the shop I was working at. He was a retired guy, and he worked with a lot of stainless steel. So at that time, I'd worked with some stainless steel, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert. Just like, oh, hey, Dustin, I see you in here too. So this guy, he was like this old retired guy. I've been doing it for years and years and years, working with, quoting jobs on stainless steel and machining them and that. He's like, oh yeah, stainless steel is easy. Just like, yeah, you just quote the job. Okay, it should be this much money, take this much time. Just do that like as if it's steel. Just multiply it by 4. And you know what? The funny thing is, like, it was like, wow, that seems like a lot. Steel is steel, but the job that I was doing, I was having a lot of vibration and chatter on this, and the properties of stainless steel, it cuts differently than regular steel. It doesn't flow right, and it's kind of a bit different. So, and it turned out that in the end, the job that I worked with my boss to kind of figure out how long it would take to do this, yeah, it took about 4 times as long as I thought. And with the material costs and everything, it probably worked about 4 times. So this old guy knew it. So always add in a good contingency there. And so if you're going to be taking here's another classic one. You ever take a vacation and you're like, okay, I'd like to go for vacation for a week. Then after 4 days, you run out of money, So it's like it always costs more than you think. So, okay. What else we got here? And actually, yeah. So you want to plan ahead before, and then okay. I kind of went into number 5 there, but I didn't write it down. So let's see. We'll say things take longer and cost more. There we go. So if you can plan properly and everything, like basically, you got to get to the main thing is just like this sucks. So if you're doing, if things take longer and they cost more, say you're driving your car and you go on vacation, you run out of money. Well, now at that point, this sucks. I got no more money. I got to go home. So you should have planned ahead and realize that it's going to cost more money and budget in another 50% on your vacation. So every weekend costs $1,000. Anyways, yeah. So we'll do a little recap here, and then we're gonna go or a little, what would you call that? Review. Cutting your losses. This has nothing to do with relationships, other than you'll know it when it sucks. Anyways, that number 1, this sucks. That works. That's the universal thing for cutting your losses. Like when you really say, okay, this is it. And it's different for every person in every situation. There's going to be some money considerations in there. Are you bankrupting yourself? Should I? Unless you're a politician or a big company where it's not your money, they just blow the whole bank, and then like you can be at the ribbon cutting ceremony before you retire, and they'll name the bridge after you or something. Okay, 3, you could write out advantages and disadvantages. No one ever does it, but you could. But ideally what you want to do is plan ahead, taking into consideration that things take longer, cost more, and that way you can avoid in the first place getting to the point where this sucks and you got to cut your losses. There we go. All that from squishing a moth. So anyways, yeah, we'll just kind of take a look here and we'll go back through the few little, see if there's any questions or anything like that. Lots of bad puns from Wrench, which are welcome. Puns are always welcome on the Superpilotish channel. Okay. Lots of good, lots of good little comments in here. And oh, and yeah, thanks for the compliment on the shirt there, Corey. I appreciate it. Okay. Very cool. Okay, so I don't see any big major questions. Aha. So Wrench brings up a good question, a good point here. You can never increase your abilities if you don't go outside the envelope. Yeah, true. So, and the place to go outside that envelope is somewhere where the risk is the lowest, like at your own local airport, somewhere that you're kind of familiar with, I would say. And then, like, you don't really improve unless you push yourself a little bit there. But the time to improve is where you can have your stress level lowest, like at your local airport if you're working on your crosswind landings and stuff. and then you kind of overtrain there so that when you get to somewhere else where you're unfamiliar, maybe there's more traffic, there's other considerations. Maybe you got to really hit the bathroom really bad. That's stressful, it'll affect your landings. So something like that, and do that, and then you can kind of gradually bump up your personal limitations, is what I would say. Okay, what else we got here? All right, very good. So, uh, cool. All right, so what we're gonna do here is wrap it up because hey, today is Friday. All right, so that's cool. We're gonna have. What am I doing this weekend? I don't know what I'm doing this weekend. Do I have plans? Nah. Oh well, whatever. Having tacos tonight. Had pizza last weekend. Anyways, even though I did go camping, after all that grease, we came after all the breakfast burgers and hot dogs and stuff, we had pizza when we came back because it was just like I don't want to cook. I'm still abusing my body. Let's have some pizza. So we'll switch over to the tacos tonight. Anyways, yeah, so that's about it. We'll shut her down. I'll be back on Monday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. And there we go. We'll shut her down. You guys have a great weekend and thanks for watching. Bye.